welcome to our new podcast called Chasing the Game. I'm Kevin Quinlan, being joined by my longtime friend and colleague, Court Dunn, who's joining us from the great state of Pennsylvania today. So how's it going, Court?
I'm doing great, Kevin. Awesome to be with you again. Reminiscent of old times.
We've been talking about doing this for quite some time now, haven't we?
We have, and it's just it's a throwback to doing the radio show with you back here in Westchester.
Yes, years ago, I had a local sports talk show in Westchester, PA, called the Chester County Sports Corner. Quite often, Court would come on and be a guest for me when I didn't have a guest in studio that night, or it didn't have a lot of people on the line try to talk to me.
I knew the dates you were going to do it, and I would always sit at home hoping you would call and say, "Hey, I don't have a guest tonight. Can you come in?" And I always hoped your brother could come in too, because between you and your brother and me, I sat there and laughed the whole night.
Yeah, my brother was a good guest too. He was known as Artie, as I remember. So we'll probably bring Artie back on again this with our new venture here. Just for a little background, I met Court years back, growing up in Pennsylvania, ice hockey at Chester County Skating Club, which is right near where Court currently teaches at Upland Country Day School. And so, yeah, I was a kid, and then fast forward, however many years later, I end up as the athletic director at Upland in the mid to late 90s. Yeah, that's awesome. And well, it's our love, I think, of sports and youth athletics that really kind of brought us to wanting to do this podcast.
Absolutely.
You know, we've seen the environment out there of youth sports, good, the bad, the ugly, however you want to term it. There's a lot that I think can be learned from our past experiences and some of the things that that we've seen in the current atmosphere of youth athletics.
You've seen it through your son, Patrick, who's made it to arguably one of the highest levels you can make in youth hockey, and me having been back at the grassroots level for my whole life, working with kids as young as 8 years old all the way up to 17 or 18 years old. We bring knowledge to the plate from different aspects and different places. And so I think we can bring some good information out here with this podcast.
Absolutely. The bottom line is that sports is supposed to be fun for kids, helps develop teamwork, discipline, a lot of things that are really important. And there is a lot of good. You've seen it as an educator and a coach. Sports can bring a lot of good things out of them, but there's also things going on now that are hard to deal with. So we want to delve into both sides. I know you've had those experiences at Upland.
Right. And I tell people, not that my word is the be all and end all, but I do have a lot of years of experience, particularly with sports. I've coached lacrosse, I've coached ice hockey and soccer, and hockey is probably the highest level I've coached. But you get a much deeper appreciation coming from a school or being a teacher. Like I always tell people I'm a teacher. I don't say I'm a coach. And if they go further, I say I'm a teacher/coach. And I think that's one of my issues, not all the time, but with other people who are a coach, but lack the developmental concepts or teachings or ideas that go along with the overall development of youngsters at different ages. They're interested mostly in either padding their own resume, moving up the coaching ladder. They're interested in national championships. They're interested in, they're interested in a whole lot of other things. And yet there's many club coaches out there that are interested in the entire developmental model of their charges. And that's what I would hope that we could maybe through this encourage coaches out there to be more aware of the whole student, the whole player. Because after all, and I tell everybody, hey, listen, no matter how good you are, you're going to end up in the beer leagues eventually.
Right.
And so let's get an education along with, believe me, no one likes watching you play hockey more than I do. I mean, I just love watching these kids we teach play hockey. It's a hard game to play, and to see these youngsters out there really giving it their all and trying to get better every single day they go out there, there's nothing better than that. But at some point, we've got to prepare them for plan B. And I want them, and I think as a teacher, I see this probably better than other people who might not be working with them every day in school about how important their education is. And being a teacher first and a coach second, I think that I've learned a lot over the years that puts me in maybe a little bit better place
Yeah.
to see that.
And I remember when I was there at Upland, and one of the things that I admired about what you did with your kids and your teams is really how you taught them about commitment. Because let's face it, I think in general in society today, people have less commitment to anything. Whatever organization they might be a part of, people are willing to leave that organization to go somewhere else if the grass looks greener. I remember specifically a hockey game a couple of times where you literally would go out onto the ice with 5 skaters. If a couple of other kids had not made the right choices or had done something that didn't allow them to be there for the game, as opposed to calling up kids from another team, you'd say, no, we're playing with who we have here because I'm hoping that the guys that are letting you down understand that they are letting you down.
Sure. Well, I'd add one little extra thing to that, is that when I was coaching at the club level, I particularly would do that because I always remember telling my club players, listen, if you have a school commitment, school is number one. I don't want you playing here if you have a school commitment, whether it be a drama commitment, an art commitment, a hockey commitment, a soccer, whatever it happened to be. Your schooling is your most important part. That's what's going to pay the bills. And so you need to get an education. So I would oftentimes tell my club players, school first, school first, school first. And then as the club hockey gained more and more significance, we began having the reverse problem where people would leave the school to play for the club. And I still have an issue with that. I will give you absolutely 100% that most times the club levels these kids are playing at it has a higher level. I won't say a more important level, but it's a higher level of aptitude. And I see what's happening is that the commitment towards the school-related activity is beginning to shift towards the outside of school commitment, where people will be away Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday for some obscure tournament in Nashville, Tennessee. It doesn't mean much when you're playing the teams that are right down the street from you, and giving up not just the hockey at their school, but the academic responsibilities they have at school as well. And then coming back to school, being 3 days behind, requiring the teachers to help them make up the work. I'm saying there's not exceptions, but I'm simply saying that I don't see this as entirely positive development strategies with coaches who are demanding it, who are looking at this as the only commitment you have to make. They're not forgetting their church commitments, their Boy Scouts commitments, their orchestra commitment, whatever they happen to be. These kids need to be well-rounded.
Yep.
And I believe I want them to play hockey at the highest level, but I also want them to come in and say, hey, Mr. Dunn, hey, can you come to my concert tonight? I get so excited to see the talent level because what we're expecting of these kids in hockey, they can do the same thing in other venues. It's all about adult expectations.
Right.
Why are certain places of the world better at supporting and encouraging and teaching certain aspects? Well, it's because maybe in Russia they're really good at women's tennis, or in Korea they're really good at math, or in England they may be really good at music, in Philadelphia they may be really good at basketball. But it's the expectations there and then the support. So if you expect the kids to achieve up here and then provide the support, I find the issue, many people have the expectations, but they don't support
I think that's.
And teachers do that, I think, better than a coach who sees a kid twice a week.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. I mean, personal experience, obviously our son Patrick spent 2 years at Upland, and it was great for him in more ways than we thought it would be, honestly. He wanted to go there because of the hockey, because he loves hockey, and he knew you were there, and he would be on the ice every day, and all of that. What he didn't realize was that he was going to be in a school play and enjoyed being in, which he never would have done at the public school, Unionville, which is a great school. He just wouldn't have gotten involved in it. And the way that they have the classroom set up there with the large tables called the Harkness method, where kids sit around, that was really good for Patrick because he got to talk more in class. So there was way more about Upland that was positive than just the on-ice stuff.
We haven't mentioned it yet, but we need to let people know that Patrick, your son, is now playing at the NTDP level as a goalie. And I think that you and your wife Toby have been able to negotiate that plan to get him to where he needs to do, at the same time getting an education, being with the tier 1 programs and all of that.
Right.
So I just wanted to add that to the background of what you're saying.
Absolutely. I mean, and we went through all the different levels of that, and Another reason that I think we can bring a pretty good perspective for this podcast, having been through the ringer, so to speak. So as Court just said, Patrick is now a goalie. So growing up, hockey was just something that he liked to do, and it was fun. And then he played at Chester County Skating Club, the small rink on the campus of Upland Country Day, and it just had a great feel to it. The kids got a lot of ice. It was just a good environment to be in. Ultimately, we then moved over so Patrick could play for the Junior Flyers in Westchester, and that also ended up being a good experience for Patrick. It was a higher level of hockey, and he was ready for that. And I think it was the right move, even though it killed me to leave Chester County. It was a really hard decision, as I know I talked to you about. I talked to numerous other people at Chester County because to me, there was no better place for a kid to learn the game of hockey. So in doing that, yeah, we spent some long weekends away on the road. Patrick missed days of school at Unionville at the time. And this was also his Pee Wee Quebec year when he was fortunate enough to play in the Pee Wee Quebec tournament. And we were up in Quebec for almost 2 weeks. But he missed about 18 days of school. And we got a letter from Unionville saying, hey, any more, and we got to figure out something here. So, yeah, we were part of this system where we were traveling for Tier 1 for Junior Flyers. And frankly, I thought it was, some of that travel was unnecessary. We were spending a lot of money, hotels, things like that. Sometimes, to your point, we would play against teams that we could play at home because teams from our area were also traveling to Buffalo or down south or to Chicago to play in these elite tournaments. And yet we had just played them at home and they were a half hour away the week before. So there really was some silliness to that.
Now, there is one other thing I'll add too. I know you don't like to boast. Having had Patrick in class, I can tell you that he's a straight A student. He was a straight A student at an independent school, and he just signed with Notre Dame next year to play for Notre Dame. So there's no finer academic institution. So what separates Patrick from everybody else is that he's really concerned about his education as well as his hockey. And whatever he seems to do, whether it was baseball when he was younger, he has this sense of effort and achievement that it's rare in many young people, because he would come back from these trips, but his homework was all done. He didn't require extra help because while he was away, he was getting his work done. And so that's a big difference.
Well, it's nice. He said he absolutely got that from Toby. He didn't get that from me. I can tell you that right now. So thank God he has his mom's brain.
And at what point when you spend all these, it'd be interesting to find out what you and Toby spent throughout all those years with BK and the Junior Flyers and traveling to all these tournaments. And would it be better to move to say, pick your family up and move to Minneapolis or some other cold weather climate where you're skating more during the day? I don't know. It's just, because to me, it's all about ice time. And you can try to duplicate that all you want to, but there's nothing like going to school with your skates over your shoulders, skating on the way to school with all the older players, coming home from school, putting the skates on, having dinner, doing your homework, and playing, especially in a place where school and club don't compete with one another, where everybody's on the same page. And I look back at so many people with these dreams, which you don't, as you said, you don't want to squash them at all, but you also want to inject a little bit of realism into it and say, hey, you know what? There's not many people getting to higher levels in Philadelphia unless you seek help outside. And at what point do you say, well, we better move there versus transport our kids 2 hours to practice 3 times a week? And not only the money that it costs, but what is the impact on the family, on the little brothers and sisters who are thrown in the car to take somebody to a practice 2 hours away 3 times a week? I don't see that particularly as being beneficial to our family unit either.
No, and you know what? What we found, the 1 year, so when Patrick went to BK, which is Bishop Kearney in Rochester, New York, it was his 10th grade year, the year after he graduated from Upland. His quality of life went way up being at a boarding school where he was getting home from the rink by about 6 o'clock at night. So he was showered, back in his dorm by 6:30, where he could then do his study hall and work on his homework and get to bed at a normal time. Whereas at home, when I was driving him to junior flyer practice, which is only 20 minutes away. Wasn't like that far. But we wouldn't get home till 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. What was the first time, Court, that you thought it seemed to you like, geez, I think something's getting a little out of whack here?
Yeah, actually that's a great question. And I hadn't really thought about this in a long time.
Yeah.
But I remember coaching at the skating club, and this would be back in probably the late 70s, early 80s. And I was asked to be a member of the board hockey committee. And I remember sitting there, and the board of directors was troubleshooting. They were discussing the pressures being put on the kids for more games. Well, Dr. Quinlan, my head of school, who hired me, who was also my mentor in hockey, among a couple of others, but the guy was a brilliant mind, but had a developmental formula that he thought 10-year-old kids should be playing this amount of games, 12-year-old kids this amount, and he had rules about how many games each level could have and how many tournaments they could play in the course of the season that would be in their best developmental interest. Now, I'll tell you that he had his doctorate in education, so he was well versed in the developmental aspects of children. And he had this formula which worked for a long, long time. Adding to the support that he had among everybody, because he was the undisputed champion of development in the area. So, do you remember, I don't know if you do, the blue laws in Pennsylvania? Well, the blue laws, I'm not sure what year they were rescinded, but for those of you listeners who aren't familiar with what I'm talking about, it used to be on Sundays that all stores, everything was closed, except for one drugstore in town, and they rotated which drugstore was going to be open in case you needed an emergency. I needed stuff for an emergency.
Wow. Yeah.
But everything else was closed. Almost everybody went to church. A topic of conversation: which church do you go to? Which church do you go to? And people would come back and talk about Sunday school. Not always in the most positive ways, because there's a lot of 13-year-olds who would rather be doing other things besides going to Sunday school. But yet it was part of being a family.
Yeah.
And so then I remember when the blue laws when they were rescinded, and then all of a sudden the board of directors sitting around there saying, it would be a lot easier if we could schedule these games on Sunday. And so they started scheduling games on Sunday, which took the time away from the family, because now we're traveling. Now we're not having dinner after church at 1 o'clock in the afternoon and meeting with the relatives and grandparents and all that. It was gone.
Interesting.
And I remember being the only person at that board of directors table who voted against it. And I said, this is going to come back to haunt us.
Wow.
In my one moment of prophesying, I have many times I tried to prophesy, but that was one time I said, you don't know where this is going to lead. And so here we are today, 7 days a week, 24/7, all year long, summer teams, fall teams, winter teams. You play the sport all the way around at the expense of family.
Yeah.
And for something that very few people are going to make it to the level they wish to. They're going to say, where in the world did $100,000 go? I could have taken my family around the world for that amount of money and provided a really cool education. Now, again, I've got to be careful, because I do like the fact that people dream and that people have goals. I like kids who have lofty goals. That's really what drives the force. But in anything, I love the fact that they want to make the show.
Right. Right.
But sometimes those adults in their lives have got to say, hey, listen, I love it. I love that you have goals, but I have, as your teacher, your mentor, your father, your mother, whatever, we need to prepare you for what we know is coming down the road. Even if you make it to the highest level, your career is going to be over by the time you're 29.
Yeah.
And how many times do we have to have psychologists help these people move into a more normal sedentary lifestyle with a family? They're just not equipped to do it. That's the only skill they have. As they're growing up, because they're good, they were known. If you say, well, who are you? They'll say, I'm a hockey player. And that's who they are. And so when they're no longer a hockey player, who are they? They have no idea, because they have nothing else in their life.
Right.
And as a longtime teacher who's seen this year after year after year, and I talk to the kids in class all the time, as many times as I can, as much as they'll listen to me. Who are you? Tell me something about you that I don't know. What skills do you have besides ice hockey?
Right.
Tell me when you have a play. Tell me when you're going to do something else. I'd like to come watch it.
Right.
That sort of thing.
That's really good. And I specifically remember a guy that hopefully will be able to get to come on here with us. And I was just texting with you the other day. Nick Ward, who played hockey Chester County baseball at Unionville and at Westchester. They won the college NCAA Division II championship. And he's now in somebody's farm system. I'm trying to remember where Nick is right now. We'll figure that out. But I specifically remember Nick talking with Patrick one time and saying, hey, just always remember, your identity is not as a hockey player. He's like, you're Patrick Quinlan, a good kid who plays hockey.
Excellent.
But don't let it become your identity, just your sport. And I was like, wow, that was really, I mean, I don't think I had never said that to Patrick. I had never thought about it.
And having coached the Unionville team at that particular point, having him on my team, you could tell he was a cut above the average as far as his attitude about sports, who he was, and how hard he worked to ply his trade as not just a hockey player, but more importantly as a baseball player. You got a real sense of that this kid has his head on straight.
And exactly. So he'll be really fascinating to talk to because he's been through the grind. He's still going through it. He's got a great attitude about it. I'll say, Court, for me, I was coaching Patrick in Little League Baseball. And I remember asking a couple of kids to pitch. This was just Little League. This is probably 10, 11 years old. So we were in the minors division and saying, hey, I'd like you to pitch a couple innings today. And we'd have instances where the kids would say, I can't pitch because I'm going to be pitching for my travel team this weekend. And I was like, what do you mean? And they said, well, my coach doesn't want me throwing any innings during the week because he might need me for 6 innings on the weekend. And I was just like, okay, wait a second. Something's not right about this.
So you sacrifice playing for your buddies, the people you grew up with, for a 6-week jaunt with people you don't even know that will probably not end up in Williamsport.
Right. And to me, it was like, let's try to establish some communication between this coach, the travel coach, and myself.
Beautiful. Absolutely right.
Right. Yeah.
Absolutely. To solve this issue, that's exactly what we need, is the communication between the club and the school, or between the club and the travel team. That's the only way it's going to be solved.
Yes.
With people who are putting the child first and the result second. Until we can do that, this is going to get worse. I've been through it so many times. I just get worked up about it.
I know, because you think with reasonable people, there has to be a middle ground.
That's exactly what I think. Yeah.
Right. I mean, say, okay, hey, listen, I understand. You let me know the weekends where you really think you're going to need him to pitch for you.
Yes.
Right. And I'll, if it's within reason, I'll work around that. Or I'll, so that, like you said, so as opposed to putting the kid in the middle and the parent, right, putting the kid in the middle.
I was going to say the same thing.
Yeah, and the parent in the middle, because now the parent also knows, oh my God, if he pitches for the rec team, then the travel coach is going to bench him, and we can't have that because I know the parents perceive that the travel team is what's going to get them the golden ticket, right? That's the perception.
Beautifully said.
Right.
That's exactly right. And I don't understand how any adult would ever put a child in the middle and endangering the emotional welfare of a child to have to choose between two positive experiences, and why you would put the child in the middle where two adults are fighting and the kid is looking back and forth. Where do I go? Where do I go? Help dad, help mom. And so because two adults are put in that situation, and in what world is that good for the kid?
It's not, unfortunately. Those situations the ballot seems to be tipping in favor of the travel tier 1 elite, whatever terminology you want to give to it. The emphasis and the importance is going away from the school teams and the rec teams. I mean, heck, rec doesn't even exist in some communities anymore. It's having such a tough time surviving, getting people to play because there are more and more for-profit organizations out there.
Let's make no mistake about it. It's for profit.
Correct. And some of these programs are well run. I don't want to say that they're not,
I'll
because
agree with that.
some of them actually have good motivations and they are trying to teach the kids the right way. But I would say they're probably in the minority of the travel world where these people are making outlandish promises to these athletes and their parents that they cannot back up. If you just sit back, the numbers don't bear it out at all. So ultimately, kids sports is coming down to a situation of, well, who can afford it? I mean, if you can afford to do some of these programs, well, great. But a lot of families can't. And so their kids are left wanting. I will say something to you had mentioned earlier from the parents' side of things. There's a lot of pressure put on the parents to make these decisions. And having been through it, I can say that it is hard to say no to some of these opportunities that are presented for your kid. And
I agree with that. And that's why I get upset with people in my place who are putting that pressure on the parents to do that, knowing full well of what you're going through with your child, your kid. And we're doing something which we know at the bottom of our hearts is not in the best interest. More games, more games, more games. Shoot, you go away to a hockey game, you're only going to be in the ice 15 minutes a game. That's it.
Right.
How can you get better playing 15 minutes a game and touch the puck at outside of 5 to 10 times? In a period.
right.
How in the world? And so we continue to say, more games, more games. Oh, by the way, give me another $500 for that. We have another tournament. Oh, we're playing a tournament this weekend. We need a warm-up game before the tournament. So now
Right.
they call you the next day and say, we have a game. You have to be there. It never ends. And so my issue doesn't come with, I know the parents have pressure, but we put that pressure on them. And so we have got to stop doing that,
Right.
I think.
Well, listen, everybody talks about, and the studies have shown that multi-sport athletes are more well-rounded and typically have done better at whatever sport they decide to follow and chase down the line, right?
You sound like Wayne Gretzky, but I'm not gonna listen to you because what does Wayne Gretzky know about childhood development?
Imagine that. Like if you actually played something other than hockey. Or it might make you a better hockey player in the end. I'll get for a specific example with Patrick. His two favorite sports became baseball and hockey. Now interestingly enough, he was a catcher in baseball and a goalie in hockey. Very similar, in a way, similar positions. Well, I think one of his biggest strengths in goal is his glove hand. Now, because he played catcher, I think that developed Patrick's catching ability. And I know it did. And beside the point that he liked both sports, and it did develop completely different skills. And not only that, but it gave him something else to look forward to. Like, okay, this season is ending. What am I going to do different next? As opposed to when it never ends, you're going to get tired and bored of it. Anybody will. And so we used to have 3 seasons. I think a 3-sport athlete now is almost impossible. And I think that's where we're at. I don't know. What do you think about that?
And I have you'll find I have a lot of opinions about a lot of things.
Yeah.
Not necessarily all of them are right, but they were developed for my desk anyhow. But I have coached hockey for a long time, and I look at hockey players as high-end athletes who've spent their whole life developing, going to camps, clinics, hockey all year round, and they have incredible skills that I've never had.
Right.
They can shoot the puck at 100 miles an hour. Their stick handling is incredible. Their trick shots they can do. The Michigan behind the back stuff, what they see and what they do is absolutely incredible at practice. Game, they haven't a clue how to play the game because they've never learned how to attack a ground ball at second base. They've never learned how to box out in basketball. They've never learned how to use the sidelines in soccer. They've never learned how to use the clock in lacrosse, to have an awareness of where we stand with the clock, with a man down or extra man or a man down defense. All these, I call them athletic skills that you learn by playing other sports. And I don't see the same thing translating into the hockey games. However, they're extremely skilled.
Right.
More than I ever was.
That's really interesting.
And so I still like the idea of a multi-sport athlete. Just the word athlete. I think that they're not just a hockey player; they're an athlete now.
Right. Yeah, exactly. That's it. More of an awareness
Right.
of situations.
Time and space awareness.
Yeah. I get bored sometimes watching the NHL games now. I grew up loving the Flyers. And even while I know that the players are faster and they are stronger, to your point, they're incredibly skilled, I find the game kind of blah and boring to watch. And I think it's, Gretzky has talked about this and several others, Bobby, that the creativity is being coached out of the players, right? They're being taught systems, and they're being taught to mold whatever style play they have into a system. And suddenly a lot of the finesse or a lot of the stuff that you look forward to isn't even a part of the game anymore because it won't be as successful, or they don't think it will be as successful. So I think it's a shame.
Or coaches who have one style of play, and every single player, no matter who they are forced to play that one style of play, when the skill level of the players they have simply doesn't mesh with this particular style. You have defensive style players, offensive style players, creative players. But that's one of the big things when I watch practices. Let's skate around this cone. Let's skate around that cone. Here's the way I want you to enter the zone. Here's the way I want you to do this. And every single situation in hockey is different. To choreograph a zone entry, for instance, and I prefer to look at it like, where's the open space? Go to open space. A breakout looks similar in the neutral zone as it does in the defensive zone. It's where the space is. And teach people to be creative within a space. And one of the things I've said, one of my mantras is, hey, listen, if you teach kids to skate around cones, they get good at skating around cones. Perfect. If you teach a coach, if you teach people to listen to coaches speak, they'll be good at listening to coaches speak. But they're not. But if you let them play hockey, they'll be good at playing hockey. But we don't do that. We manufacture all these things and force the kids to go through sometimes putting a square peg through a round hole, and they don't learn game situations. They don't learn how to adjust, how to be creative,
I sure do. And I actually think, and I've talked to you about this, that USA Hockey has done a pretty good thing. Kids, when they're on the ice, need to, one, be moving. They can't be standing in lines. And two, they need to be making quick decisions, touching the puck a lot. So they're really promoting something that you have been promoting at Upland for a long time, as far as creating small-sided games for kids to play. So you take a half of the zone and you put them in a 3-on-3 game, and you give them a few different rules, and suddenly and I learned this from you, they are learning skills that they don't even know they're learning because you set it up correctly. And they're having fun because they're playing. And I think that is something that USA Hockey is promoting.
Well, it's nice you recognize that, because I think the one difference is that I would create a game. I would make up a game based upon the weakness of the players that I had, or the need of the players that I had, not necessarily weakness. But if I recognized they were having trouble with doing this, I would create a game where that had to happen. If they weren't getting enough touches, I'd play 7 puck games, 5 puck games. I'd have, there'd be so many different, so all the people are skating all the time, where they had to think about what they're doing. If you knock a puck out here, there's going to be one coming in from another angle. How do you get the kids to do what you want them to do without them knowing that they're doing it? Or it requires a little bit of thought. It requires a little bit of planning. But that was kind of my shtick, trying to come up with the right thing to get these kids moving in the right direction.
I listen, to this day, it amazed me. I remember at practice saying, we're having a lot of trouble, Court, doing this. What do you think? And within like 10 seconds, well, just do this, put them in a game, make sure one team can only play with their backhand. The other team has to hold on to the puck. They can't pass it, and that in a different situation will learn them to have more
confidence in carrying the puck.
Right. Exactly. And so I love that, because you could do that on the fly. And yet that's a huge thing to understand how to motivate and teach kids, and they have creativity also. It's not a rote thing that they're dealing with.
And that was important.
Well, I tell you what, I think we should wrap her up there. I'm getting a little hungry. It's Friday, and you guys actually, I believe Upland has its last game, hockey game tonight. Is that
we have our senior night tonight, our last game. So I love, as you know, I love hockey, but I gotta admit, sometimes, it's nice to see the sun, to get outside, to do some other stuff as well. But as long as the kids are involved with it, I'll always love it.
That's great. Well, listen, this has been fun. We hope that you guys like what we're doing here. We are going to continue on a weekly basis to bring you our Chasing the Game podcast, which is going to be a little more in depth on some of these different topics that we've talked about today, to try to break down what is going on in youth athletics. Because believe me, I talk to a lot of parents out there, and 9 out of 10 believe that this is nuts, or boy, here we are traveling. I'm never home. We all talk about that the environment is just something out of whack with it. But it's hard to break out of the cycle when you're in it. And that was what I was alluding to, the parental pressure, as it is hard because of FOMO, right? Fear of missing out. And the system is set up so that it makes it hard to say no, even though. But those are sort of things we'll talk about, is other options and why we will be